Our next speaker is T. Ortiz Walker, a survivor, leader, and trainer specializing in developing strategies to end child sex trafficking. She founded the Still Alive initiative, which provides daily mentoring and counseling for victims and survivors, as well as trainings for governments and NGOs and victims of domestic sex trafficking. She has testified before the U.S. House of Representatives on child sex trafficking and was selected by Time magazine as one of the 100 most influential people in the world in 2014. In 2011, she was named Woman of the Year by Glamour magazine. It's such an honor to have you with us here today, and we look forward to learning more about you as a survivor leader and more about what we can do, because I think as hard as we are trying in the UN, there's a lot more we can learn to step up our efforts, and I hope today moves us a little bit further in that direction. You have the floor, T.
Most definitely. Well, I can't say thank you enough for the opportunity to be here. Thank you so much to UNODC themselves, APNIAP and Ruchira. I can't say enough. And Artists United Against Human Trafficking, specifically, and most importantly, Roseanne, who has been a personal supporter of mine and has made like an angel to me. And lastly, I would really like to say thank you, Samia, because I also know what it means to be up here and to share your story and to be transparent with this. And you are really a hero to me, because I, at the age of 26, couldn't imagine doing this at the age of 15 when I was in it and I was just out. So you are remarkable and you are braver than I could ever imagine. And we all have our hats off to you, baby girl. So, I mean, I can't say enough what this means to me personally. I come from Oakland, California. I'm a little girl from the hood, mixed Puerto Rican, and I never thought that my life would be the way it is. I mean, I'm sitting here on a panel with Gloria Steinem, the Gloria Steinem, and I can't say enough what it means to know who I was as a little girl who once felt like I just wanted to die and I no longer wanted to live, to be liberated and to be able to walk in the path behind someone so remarkable who has made such change. And for me to be able to distinguish myself not only as a professional who advocates on behalf of human rights, women, girls, and people of color, but as, you know, a survivor, to be able to distinguish myself, you have made that path so much easier. So I thank you for that. This is so important to me. I mean, I can go on and I can ramble, but this is so important because as I speak, there are multitudes of young people who in this very moment are suffering, that are being bought and sold on the streets, in brothels, you know, in the back of papers, in various ways. And so what this means is this is another chance for us to remember and reach out and make a change for those young people who are being affected in this moment right now as we sit in this room. You know, I think what a lot of people don't realize is people ask, you know, how does someone become vulnerable for sex trafficking? And everybody thinks it's this, you know, whole idea of like taken and you're just going to get, you know, kidnapped and all that. Well, a lot of people don't realize that specifically for children, the vulnerabilities are some challenges that are somewhat simple challenges that everyday Americans face. Succumbing to environmental pressures, trusting the wrong people, having lack around clarity around places to go for help. You know, these all attribute to vulnerabilities of children and mostly overall for women and girls who are affected by sex trafficking and even young boys. I think one of the most important things is that we use the term survivor as if, you know, I am separated or removed from you, or you are separated and removed from me. I think the most important perspective and the most important things to remember is that we are all survivors. We have all been through some sort of oppression, discrimination. We have all been done unjustly in one way or another. And if we can find the opportunity and the energy to invoke empathy and understanding and comprehension to a survivor of sex trafficking rather than sympathy, we can make amazing strides. You know, again, I think it's dealing with this humanistic perspective, seeing it as in how all of us, you know, have things that can make us vulnerable, and also being able to share it with empathy rather than the lens of sympathy. This is something that crosses barriers. It crosses international lines. It's something that's true in every country, you know, and I think that one thing that was so remarkable that you said, Gloria, today here was that it's easy to judge someone who has no power, and what we need to do more is give these survivors power, and that's essentially what I and many of us and everyone here is trying to do. You know, I think that I read Ruchira's River of Flesh, and it was so impactful to me because people don't realize how this all ties in, and it's all the same. You know, I read a portion of The Last Customer, and the story of hopelessness and confusion of that young person was just the same as a story of hopelessness and confusion as a girl in America, in India, in Bulgaria, in Hungary, you know, all of these different places. And so to be able to see it through that eyes and that this is all relative, you know, we understand that those who do this work needs to be intentional because this work is meaningful and impactful. So it's so important. We have to focus on demand. We understand that there's exploiters. We understand that this is an atrocity. We understand that this is happening to young girls. But if we don't focus on the root of demand, then we are not going to make any change. So it's all about really addressing that root issue of supply and demand. I, separate from being a survivor, am a scholar in communications and feel that it's so important. And as Ruchira mentioned, I actually was able to pen and author a petition that changed the Associated Press style guide from using the term child prostitute. I really believe that by changing the language, we can change the stereotypes and the illusions of perspectives or false illusions and perspectives on these young people and, you know, allow them to have more opportunities for growth and for people to see what this is. We can't call the customers Johns. They're child rapists. You know, they are people who are, you know, molesting people. And so we have to call them how they are, you know, and these are not child prostitutes. By using the term child prostitute, it gives a negative connotation that these are willing participants. And I can tell you one thing. At 15, I was confused, and I did not see my you know, victimization. And if you would have told me at 15, I'd have cussed you out and told you I wasn't a victim because I didn't know what that meant. I didn't see that because I literally was just trying to survive. So for us to encourage, you know, everyone in the field, people in society to use the proper right language, you know, it's so impactful. A place like this, a place like the UN that has such leadership, I very much, as a survivor, as a professional in this field, encourage you to avoid using the term sex worker, as I don't believe that is proper language. Nobody wants to be a sex worker, and nobody says, when I grow up, this is what I want to do. I think that there are so many tools that are necessary that are needed to address this issue that are rooted in prevention, addressing the proper resources. And, you know, so often I hear trauma-informed care or survivor-led, but this needs to equal individual-centered responses. This needs to be not only for the victims, but also for the strengthening the families and their communities. And strengthening relationships. I can't say it enough that relationships are such an essential core of the vulnerabilities and of the reasons why people are stuck in this situation. And so we have to really strengthen our opportunities for continuous relationships. You know, although this is a sad circumstance, you know, it is nobody's going to be rescued. I'll be the first to tell you, didn't nobody rescue me, didn't nobody rescue her, and didn't nobody rescue Rachel. It was through, and I can definitely, you can check me if I'm wrong, but I think it's definitely through the opportunity of self-exploration activities, self-esteem building, opportunities to push yourself beyond comfortability in safe spaces. So much of what APNIAP represents, that whole idea of self-empowerment. You know, and we have to, as mentioned, there's the weakest person, and we have to give that weakest person the power to embody strength and resilience to overcome these issues. So I sit here today, not as a sad survivor, not to tell you my life sucks and it's a sad story. I struggle. This hurts. And when I leave, I'm going to cry. This is not easy to be as transparent as possible. But I am example by reminder to the resilience, transformation, and possibilities of this population to contribute to the future society. This includes leaders of the United Nations. This includes those of us who are going to make change in healthcare and all other fields. Includes the next president of the United States and more Gloria Steinem's down the way. So I really want to leave us with a quote that is literally the only reason why I'm here. It's a quote by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and it goes like this. The test of first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still have the ability to function. One should, for example, see that things are hopeless and yet be determined to make them otherwise. This is the group. Thank you so much.